out what shape we're gonna wind up.
Yeah.
It'll be creative.
Ovalish.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, so we may have some others join us, but when Karen asked me to do a breakout, it's like, sure. It's like, but it's like, what would that consist of? And so as I thought into it, prayed into it, is my thought, the best thing, what I'd like to do to get started is, why did you pick this one? What did you come to this breakout hoping to gain or accomplish or take home or take with? Because to me, that's what a breakout's about. It's not about what I might have to share, but what did you come here? Why
I'll
did you
tell
pick
you.
this one? Yeah.
One, and that is, I know that I'm vertically challenged and horizontally contained, so then I need to expand that. So that was a good lead in. I thought, well, I think I like this guy.
Oh.
He's got something going in his thought process. Then the frosting on the cake was that I ran off to catch my flight, and I brought my crummiest, dirtiest, stinkiest boat shoes instead of my good ones, which I left on the boat. And I thought, oh, no, we're going to maybe wash feet, and I'm taking these things off. They're going to stink so bad Teresa's going to move. And so I knew that I was in the right place, because, you know, if I'm that stinky and that bad, I must be in the right place.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate
So-
the transparency.
So God just
Yeah.
said, okay. But I think the concept of this nakedness before the Lord, and then everything based on Genesis, you know, it's like, I mean, everything keeps getting back to 1 through 11. So pretty hard to go pretty much beyond that.
Yeah.
So that I've got a great deal of interest in that.
Okay. Me too. Like I said, this is a personal journey. I don't think we ever truly arrive. I mean, that's a myth. I think it's.
Also, your example of here and there, I thought that was tremendous. You know, I've heard it in business. There's been a lot of, you know, S curves and various things like that in terms of, you know, building your firms and that. But I never really related that to building yourself personally.
Okay. Thanks, Roger.
Well, your title intrigued me, so, and I kind of, you know, jumped to the conclusion that that's kind of what it was probably about. I was assuming it wasn't about, you know, literally getting naked, but, yeah, just, you know, feeling like there's a place for continued understanding of how to do that myself and how to help others do that, so.
And really, that's it's a great posture to be in, because I believe that whole process of vulnerability or transparency is really for the sake of vulnerability. So the transparency part is, how do we deepen our intimacy with the Father? But there's a purpose behind that. And the purpose is, how do we channel that into others for the benefit of the kingdom? And I think that's where the start of that is vulnerability, but I think it's probably broader than that. So, yeah, hopefully we can speak into that. And I do say, I said we intentionally, because I don't want this, I think this should be a dialogue. So, anybody else? I don't know why you're here.
I think for me, it was honestly the opportunity to just spend more time with the both of you. Partially.
You come hang anytime.
Yeah, of just like getting to sit and hear from you guys and chat. And then after hearing the talk, just that idea of like the deeper intimacy and, yeah, a lot of like thought-provoking things I think you touched on where I probably will go like spend some more time, like even more asking those questions and kind of just going on that walk. And it is beautiful, just the imagery you were able to paint. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, okay, it's making sense, to be able to relate and see our relationship, our walk, where we want to be, where we are, where we're going, in terms of like our relationship with the Lord, of just being able to visualize it. So I'm like, I'm here for more of the conversation, just in that same idea of things.
Huh?
Well, I'm here because I know you're a good teacher, and so I knew I'd get something out of this one. Not that the others aren't good teachers too, I'm sure they are, but I'm more familiar with it, and I always enjoy when he shares.
So, well, how about I do this? I'm just gonna share some additional thoughts, and we'll just kind of see where that takes us, because kind of to piggyback on what you were saying, Barry, as far as I think the value of maintaining this posture, maybe not as our prayer life, but as at least an element of our prayer life, is one thing I've challenged myself to do, is to actually have a contemplative time each day that includes those 3 declarations and 3 questions. And because I find that each day I can discover something new that I'm hiding. It's like, and I think this thought just came to me when it says, Adam and Eve used fig leaves, plural, to cover themselves. I believe, I could be mistaken, aren't fig leaves pretty big? Or I don't know if they're big or small. We should look that up
I
sometime.
think they are big.
And I don't know if that's true. That's just something we got out of Sunday school quarterlies. They are really big. But, maybe the Lord just removes those leaves just one at a time at the pace we can handle it. But I think we can walk in that because we have that as our rhythm, allowing Him to show us where there's still areas where we are insecure, where we're trying to prop ourselves up, trying to create image, and basically having our act together so that we better represent Him. And I think we maybe better represent Him in the messiness of life. And I think I appreciated your transparency and just saying this is what I heard and what you were saying is the way I describe my life sometimes is I just get really constipated. I just hold in a lot of stuff, and I try and maintain all this packaging when really it's like, who am I trying to fool? I mean, I may fool everybody. You can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. You can fool God none of the time. So, and if we truly believe that is the most important relationship, and that's our whole reason for being here, that's primary, everything else is secondary, then beginning a day with these declarations of just saying, here I am. I'm assuming here for a reason. And here you are. So here we are together. Now what? And the part that I've just recently started praying into is, who am I? And part of that is I even told Kathy here not too long ago, come to the conclusion, I'm a pretty insecure individual. And why? It's like, and just being able to be in touch with that is like, and rather than trying to project security and project all this other, just who am I? And maybe sometimes that's a release of how I see myself and allowing God to speak into who I truly am. And then who are you? who are you has been, I think, aids us in that transparency. As we truly discover who he is, it's easier to be more, I shouldn't say easier, to me it's still difficult to be vulnerable and transparent. But the part I've gained from that is I caught myself in the delusion of, or the complacency of thinking I know who God is. And so the illustration I came up with is this dartboard. Like I said, I think in pictures. And so the question I have for you is, if this were representing, if you got to pick one of these darts to represent your goal in your spiritual walk in life, which goal would you want to represent you? And which dart would you want to represent you?
Bullseye.
Same.
Why? Did you say bullseye?
Yeah,
Why is that?
I want to get it right.
So this, I'm going to read a quote from this book, from C.S. Lewis, that'll help explain the illustration. If I can find the right post-it note here. His illustration was with archers instead of playing darts, but that's what made me think of this. Because the deal is, how many of you grew up playing darts?
Off and on.
Yeah, me too. My son-in-law is British. Have you ever been to a pub? Darts are always there. I don't know if I heard directly from him, but I realized I didn't know darts. I thought I knew darts. So C.S. Lewis's quote here spoke to me. It says, if we, like archers, we aim our arrow prayers toward the bullseye of our conceptual target, at our limited ideas of God, instead of aiming beyond and above our ideas, our prayers will simply arc back down into the dirt. So the challenge that I took out of that was, am I aiming my prayers at the God who truly is, or my current perspective of him? And if I'm aiming at my current perspective of him, that means I've become content / complacent in understanding him. And so when I read that, this image popped in my head, and then I had to go back and look it up. So in darts, we've all played darts, throwing at the bullseye, if you're like me, wondering, why are these numbers out the side? I never understood darts. So with this ring, if you get in these little squares, it's a 3x multiplier of whatever number you're on. So the bullseye is worth 50. Each of the other 4 darts have a higher point value. So I learned this when I was watching some sports channel, and they were playing darts. I don't know how I had time on my hand to watch this. And they were celebrating. Somebody got like 3 in this little square, and it's like, my mind's thinking, how did this guy get on this show? He can't even hit the bullseye. You know? And so what the corollary is, I believe we don't stretch ourselves. We think that somehow our current understanding is who the unlimited, unfathomable God of the universe truly is. And it's like we're still, no matter how long we live, I still believe we'll be looking through a keyhole. So that brings us back to that posture of, more, Lord, show me more of who you are, but I don't feel I can legitimately ask more of you until I've given more of myself. If I'm still hiding, that's not a relationship someone's going to be, I think it's a reciprocal transparency. It's like, you can't handle more of me. if you're still like this. And so the other takeaway was, I think sometimes when we're praying a specific prayer, we are predefining that the answer will look like this. God shows up below our expectations, we're disappointed, and he's like, that's worth more points. It's like, but it doesn't look like what I wanted, God. Where are you? He goes, I'm really where you want me to be, you just don't recognize me. Or at the same token, maybe we're in a false humility, aiming here, thinking, no, I don't deserve, I don't. God winds up here giving us something above and beyond. It's like, no, that can't be God, because I believe it should be like this. And I think both situations reveal that I'm not pressing into an ever dynamic, growing relationship from beyond an asking posture. I think it's easy to get to a point, it's like, well, I understand God, who he is, and how I should relate to him. Now that we've got that settled, here's what I need. Kathy and I sometimes teach marriage classes or do marriage counseling, and it's not uncommon in a marriage that the pursuit gets more attention than the prize. The pursuit, the dating, the romance, and all that. We talked to someone even this morning. They had a child. A relationship had ended because one of them didn't feel the butterflies anymore. You know, and it's like, well, then they had invested so heavily, but now it's like, well, you know, now what do we do? Or a couple gets married, they've done all this romance, and now it's like, okay, you know, we've got the ring now. I can let myself go. I can, you know, we don't have to have date nights. We don't have to invest in getting closer. We got close enough to get married. And I think too often we can treat God that way. Not admittedly, but I think by allowing ourselves to always be realizing he will forever be beyond our comprehension. Hopefully will keep us striving. That's I think of this as I pray. Who am I? Who are you? Who are we together? Sometimes the conversation that comes back is more about this day. Sometimes it's a different time span, but that's what I've gained through that liturgy, through that rosary, through that just that little prayer rhythm, and then it goes beyond that. So, but the other thing I want to come back to is the story of Moses and the non-burning bush. Because my current understanding of that is that if God was in the fire, and that fire not consuming the bush, the disruption of that paradigm is what caused Moses to actually have that conversation with God. We kind of went through the whole story this morning or early afternoon, reading it from the perspective of more or less if we were Moses in the story. Those were our takeaways, was from that paradigm. What if we were to retrace the story and we're not Moses in the story, but we're the bush? To me, that's the value add, that's the value proposition of being transparent and vulnerable, is that God may look down upon us and choose us to be that bush. And so if we look at that story as if we were the bush, what would that mean to you? If the bush was just it's no different than the bush next door. I mean, I don't think it was a solitary bush. If you've ever been to the desert, you got these little, I picture Phoenix, and not Phoenix, Phoenix is urban, but you picture Nevada, Arizona, these little scraggly, brittle bushes. But let's assume there was one or more than one. Why that one? That one was chosen, and the presence of the Lord descended and manifest. In the presence of the Lord, a fire that did not consume the bush is what turned the head of Moses. So, what would that look in our lives if had the fire of the Lord on us that caused our life, an ordinary bush, to behave differently? I mean, how would that be a witness to someone else? When I think that most of our postmodern world has their predefined misconception of God, how a life surrendered to Him looks, what are the things we can demonstrate in our life that would be contrary? Who do you think they think God is? Intimacy with God. For the non-believer, what do they think the byproduct of that would be? God is who? When they ask the question, if an unbeliever were to pray, or if you were to ask an unbeliever who God is, or relationship with Him is, how do you think they would define it? Or define God?
Like far off or distant or like so far above. Like looking down upon, I think, instead of like that connectedness.
I think someone call him judgmental and, doesn't care. I've heard people say, well, if God loved us, why does He allow this mess, So, or you said far off and not caring, judgmental.
Yeah, it's interesting because we had 10 children, and we raised them in the Lord, but quite a number of them are not. At least 2 of them are overtly, I don't want to have anything to do with Christianity. And as I've talked to them about it, they are too smart, both of them are too smart to say there is no God, because they're like, yeah, I get it, there's plenty of reasons to say there must be a God. Too many reasons to say that there can't be. So they're not, like one of my sons says, I'm not an atheist, I'm just I just don't think God really cares. I just don't think God cares. And I had missed this, and I feel bad as a father, I missed this, that he feels like, through his life, many, many times he's prayed and asked God to help, to intervene, and God hasn't answered. Now, I can go back and say, I know that's not true, because I know things He did answer. But for him, the perspective is, okay, maybe a few things, but not that important things, I guess. I don't know. He's got some kind of... So, that's what I'm experiencing, is a lot of people that are saying, yeah, maybe God does exist, maybe Christianity's cool for you, but it doesn't really work for me, because God doesn't really care about me personally, or God is selecting, kind of like Old Testament selecting. Yeah, sure, He appeared to Moses, but He didn't appear to other people that way.
He's either blessing people or cutting their heads off.
Yeah. So it's I'm becoming more and more concerned about that, because I feel like it's really, the enemy has stirred that deep in our culture. Either like you said, God is just angry and mean, or doesn't care enough to intervene when He could, or He's just detached, And so, gosh, how can we help people to? And I like what you said today. I mean, really, that I've never seen that in that story. For us to be able to say, yeah, God is a consuming fire, but He doesn't destroy. I can't explain how that works.
I gained that from this book as well. It's a quote by Seth Claiborne. I think it's Seth Claiborne. Whoever wrote, oh, now I forgot the name of the book he wrote, but anyway, talking about that, and I haven't verified it, I've started, but I haven't completely, that, the only thing God consumes or destroys are the things that don't benefit or belong. So, it's like we can trust, we can draw near that fire if it's a purifying fire. It only removes what's harmful, you know, and what really doesn't belong in life. So it's always, he will always leave us better than we were before the experience, although it may not always look like the bullseye. In his ultimate plan, we are in better shape from his touch and his experience and his fire than before it or without it. But do you think the world's concept of God is influenced by how they have seen those who call themselves God followers or Christians represent him in the here and now? How do you think the unbeliever, if they were to describe their typical Christian, how would they describe us? That's an open-ended question.
I would say the same way, kind of the same way they perceive God, which
Ah.
might be connected. They perceive God that way because they perceive us that way. They're judgmental. Again, I'm seeing it in my own family, which is not what I expected. And you know, one of my daughter, I don't even address any cultural issues or Christian terminology with her because I thought we had a better relationship than that. But she's just almost completely cut me off in the past, and the only thing I can put my finger on is because she feels threatened because I do have very strong convictions, and I will say, yeah, no, I know where you're coming from. You know, well, you quoted this person. Why would you use? I mean, if you're gonna argue something, great, argue that, but don't use somebody who's this person is a horrible person. Why did you choose them? And, I guess that kind of stuff just blew her mind. So I'm personally kind of struggling with now. How do I interact with the world, or even Christians who are in that place, and not make them feel like, oh yeah, you're one of those, you know, bigoted, dogmatic, arrogant. Whoa, gosh, it's so far from where I want to be, Lord. I don't know what has happened.
Thank you for sharing. I can see myself in that story as well, because when I really spend a long time figuratively staring in the mirror, I look back and think, yeah, sometimes I've just been really dogmatic over things that probably weren't that important to God. In our marriage relationship, we were exposed to a thought that we adopted of never make possessions more important than people. Okay? And we tried to live by that. And even though you saw the quilting that Kathy did today, you saw that scene from our time in Gambia. Well, was it high school? You made it your full-size quilt?
Yeah, I was 16.
She was 16.
I made a quilt.
Made a full
On a treadle
queen
sewing
size.
machine,
Yeah.
just so I know.
So think of the number of hours, and then it was hand-tied. And Kathy's very fit, but occasionally she'll have back problems that originated in hand-tying that quilt. We've been married at least 15 years. When did we for a long time.
Yeah.
And we were moving, and I was helping pack. And we got to the new house, and we're unpacking, packing the linen closet. And it's like, where's that quilt? It's like, well, I know I packed it. You know, where is it? Where is it? It's like, could not find it. Finally, he's like, well, what'd you pack that in? Well, I threw it in a black trash bag. And evidently it went out with the trash.
Oh.
So I think about how much Kathy had invested in that, how important that was to her. But since that happened, what, 20,
At least 10, 15.
we were 17 years in the other house.
Well, we were in that house when it happened.
I thought we were moving to that house. Anyway, several years ago.
What was it like dumpster diving at the landfill?
Oh, it was, we had to, Kathy chose to let it go. I'm the only one that tells this story. She doesn't hold it over me. The relationship's more important than even that heavily invested quilt. And so I look back at my life and I'm thinking, yes, there are standards, there are all that, but it's like, is that my role? To be that enforcer? Or what did Christ do? It's like, well, you really didn't preach dogma. It's like, well, what's the, which mountain should we worship on? Well, just love God. Treat your fellow man well. Trust me to take care of the rest. But yeah, if I have to live this way, I want to make sure everybody else lives that way too, or else that's not fair. That's where it's easy to slip into that. It's like, well, if I can't do that, no one else should do that. And, it's like, it's not. How did you get to that point of revelation? Was it from someone else telling you can't, or is it a revelation here? And so I'm not there yet, but I can see myself in that story. I think very often unbelievers find it convenient not to believe because they can, unfortunately, rightly accuse us of being dogmatic, narrow-minded. And I'm not saying throw away the gospel, but how do we represent the gospel? So how else would unbelievers describe Christians?
Boring, hypocritical. I think those are two words that come to mind for me at least.
We've got dogmatic, boring, hypocritical. What else?
I think we kind of mentioned it in the just closed-minded.
Yeah,
Judgmental.
kind of goes with the dogmatic thing,
Yeah.
closed-minded.
Yeah. So, in that situation, when we are narrow-minded, dogmatic, hypocritical, judgmental, all those things, then that's a bush that just it gets consumed. That fulfills fulfills their prophecy of what giving their life to Christ would be. It's like, so what's the attraction if that's the inroad? So I think to be that bush, not that we're patterning our life as the antithesis of their image of a Christian, we're patterning it after Christ, but I think we pattern it after Christ, we actually wind up at the opposite of what they think that is. And open-mindedness, I think, just means we focus more on the individual than their behavior. Mm-hmm. Without losing our hand-holding with the Holy God. And hypocritical is sometimes a hard part. It's easy for us to always focus about the speck in someone else's life than the log in our own eye. But I think if we look at that, if we spend that time, it's like, who am I, God? Who are you? Who are we together? Together, how can I a shining example of all the good that comes, the abundant life that comes through relationship with you? Does my life look abundant? Does it look full of transparency, authenticity, openness to others, openness to other ideas, willingness to let God be the judge and the jury rather than me? Does it look liberal? Does it liberal as in generous? Okay, I think sometimes people find that liberal a very offensive word, But does it look generous with my time, generous with my disposition, generous with my finances? Does my life look like fun? Is it full of peace? Is it full of joy? Do I transmit joy? It's questions I have to ask myself, and usually it's like, okay, God, quit. What was it? I was praying something here recently, and God started telling me, well, that just wasn't very nice. That's just why I did not like the way that felt, God. That just wasn't nice. So I think I'm just kind of talking here to hopefully that we can all grow in how we maybe approach God. It's like, who are you? I believe if I better understand you, I can better let you work in my life and better represent you, better reflect you to the world. Because he's put us here for a purpose. The end game is that fire, maybe this is what that burning bush, the bush that was chosen, when the fire hits a life that is ignited but not consumed, except for all things that don't belong or are harmful, then maybe this is the end result. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me for a reason. Because the Lord has anointed me to preach good tidings to the poor. He sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, the opening of the prisons to those who are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord, and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all those who mourn, to console those who mourn in Zion, to give them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they may be called trees of righteousness and planted of the Lord, that he may be glorified. And I think Gary hit on this morning as well, that he said that really we need a whole new form of evangelism where we are actually being, I'm paraphrasing, the hands and the feet, that we are taking care of the needs in our immediate area, because the needs are attached to people. They should, I believe, if the church would be the church and actually seek out those who are hurt and broken, similar to what we're doing here in this gathering, and not represent organizations, but represent that I'm here as a result of a relationship with the most trustworthy being you will ever meet. He's worthy of your trust. He's worthy of your praise. He's worthy of your life. And this is what a life surrendered to him looks like. And so I think our challenge is to live a life that looks appealing, authentic, but appealing, that looks compassionate and open-handed, seeking to give, not to get, and always pressing in, realizing that we will never fully comprehend all that God is. And the day that we do think, we quit asking the question, who are you, God? I think as we quit asking that, then we're inevitably always be slipping back into some level of complacency. So, thoughts, feedback.
I'm wondering if so much of this doesn't rest in, or rooted in, truly what our view of God is to begin with, whether it be a pre-believer, their view of God may be restrictive, condemnation, tight guardrails, got to prove yourself every day kind of thing. I'm going to fail, so I won't be liked, loved, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe then that is what tricks up to their view of a Christian, that they think, well, they think they're goody two-shoes, they think they're right, they think they're, because of the root being what they perceive God as. And so, but in the same light, I wonder if, as believers, we also don't have that same root of what we perceive God as, in our relationship with Him and our growth with Him. So, I had a revelation during your here or there this morning that really cleared up a lot of things in my brain, just like that. It was so clear, it was just amazing, and so I thank you for that. Letting God use you in the capacity He did this morning to bring that out, at least for me, and I think others also benefited by that. But, so anyway, getting back to the original what I was getting at, I think that our view of who God is probably the root of where we're at now and where we're going to go from here.
So that should make us excited to realize there's more of Him. And I think we consistently pray just that more, Lord, show me more of you. And please don't show me any more of me. One thing that still messes with me, experience Kathy and I had, we were actually en route to the debrief in Columbia. And true confession, we paid for a little extra for seats, and we were hoping for a little more leg room on the longer flight. And there was a seat in between us that was empty. And you're kind of like, okay, I'm pretty sure God's not in that. And it's like living for myself rather than living for Him. And this gentleman shows up, so Kathy scoots in the middle, and he takes the aisle. And I am an introvert by nature. I fly a lot, and I just don't talk. And God's healing me from that.
And I do.
Yes. But we struck up a conversation with this gentleman from Orlando, Iranian. And it's the first time I'd ever met a jaded, bitter Muslim. His take on the Muslim faith was very similar to what we hear from those who are anti-Christian.
I grew up Christian.
Judgmental, hypocritical, dogmatic, bunch of phonies. It's just all this. It's like I've heard this before. I've never, and he grew up in Iran, and he told us the story of having to go to prayer and all this, and how he was beat by whoever, I don't know if they call them, they're not priests there, but the equivalent of that. And it's just fascinating to hear him tell his story. And he starts talking all about different faiths, religions, and all that. And then I think finally I let the Lord start. I started listening more, and I just turned to him. His name was Majid. I said, Majid, I said, you're a very learned man. He's like, I said, you've put a lot of thought into this. You're really, not everyone thinks through faith and religion as deeply as you do. This is important to you. No, not really. And so we just kept talking, and finally, I just felt impressed to tell him, I said, Majid, I said, what I'm sensing is, I said, God cares about you. I said, He has a purpose for you. And I said, you're still here on this earth for a reason. And he goes, oh, absolutely, I've already died 7 times. It's like, what? He goes, yeah. He goes, yeah, I was on the table, I had a heart attack, they had to bring me back, and then I died again, they brought me back. He goes, but on that the second time I could find myself floating away, and they sent me back, and he's telling his whole story. He's like, man, that's incredible. And I said, you know what, Hodge? I said, that proves that you are here for a reason. I said, here's what I know. I don't know what that reason is. Wouldn't even pretend to guess. And I said, I'm pretty sure you don't know either. I said, I'm pretty sure I know who does. I said, would you ever be bold enough just to ask God what that reason is? Because for him, all the hypocritical faiths point to the same God. He believes in the God, but none of the religions that support. So, anyway, it's just interesting to hear. Basically, everyone's looking for an authentic representation of God impacting a human life. What does a life fully sold out to Him manifest like here in the flesh? Of course, our example of that was Christ's whole purpose in coming. This is what the world's looking for. So the one other thing I'll share, I don't wear a watch, and when I don't use my phone, I get busy. We need to quit, I guess, if they're having worship at 3, whenever.
She said quit between 3 and 3:30.
Okay, it was 3:08. So this is one other little tidbit. Maybe this would be a good thing to close with. This is another, again, I think in pictures. So, if nakedness before God is horizontal transparency and, vertical transparency, horizontal vulnerability, then on the here-there path, it's actually a here path. We will forever be on a here path until we bring in the vertical transparency and the horizontal vulnerability that transforms our here to the actual there. This is the missing piece for getting us out of our current here and putting us there. The unfortunate part of it is, well, the fortunate part of it, God's already shown us the way, given us the manual on how to change our here to there, how to put this at the front of the here. It's, see if I can get this. Take up my cross daily. Take up my cross daily. And maybe that's what changes our here to the there, is as we take up our cross daily, as we show the world what it means to lay down our life for others, that I am so secure in my eternity, I am so secure in our relationship with Him. Anything I have, all that I have, is really to help bring others into relationship with Him, even to the point of shedding my own blood. It doesn't get more authentic than that. I believe that's what Christ came to represent. is if we are truly inhabited by the living God, we're done with life, except for bringing others in. And I think the other thing that has, this is personal conviction, you can let, you just have to see if it resonates with you. I believe the other thing that has tended to cause the unbelieving world to judge the Christian faith harshly is, I believe, we have contaminated the gospel with what I call capitalistic Christianity. That we've contaminated the gospel with the quote American dream. If I follow God, it'll help, it will manifest with me manifesting the American dream. I have it all and God. That's not the goal. The goal is God having all of you. And to live that way, I believe, is the aroma, the sweet smelling aroma, the fragrance that draws others in. That's the bush that people are like, really? You're content? That life brings full contentment, full joy? I mean, that's, those are the echoes in my head at this point in my journey, and I'm just sharing with you so they can rumble around in yours. However, we pray together. Okay? Father, we are here. We're grateful that you are here. That we're all here together with you, desiring to know who you see us as, desiring to know who you are in a more powerful way. That you can show us who we are as individuals and collectively when we're connected with you. May our connection with you transform, first and foremost, our lives. That we might be chosen, a willing vessel, a willing bush for your fire to inhabit. That others would be drawn and brought into your kingdom, and that you be glorified. And Father, I just lift up Barry and the journey he's on, the love that he has for each of his children, the longing he has to see them experience your transformative love. We just pray, Father, that the veils of deception that are blinding their eyes, the dogma that they've now embraced in their lives, would be melted away, stripped away as only you can do. We just pray for the hound of heaven to go and to pursue them with love, to rattle their worlds, send your angels to cross their path. May your gospel show up in their lives in a form that they can translate and understand. We rebuke the devourer that is seeking to devour their lives. We claim them for the kingdom, and that your perfect original purpose for their lives will be fulfilled. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So, you have how many children? 5, you said?
10.
10. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I'm working on listening skills too. You don't believe it? That's my wife. But anyway, thank you all for sharing time again from your perspectives and getting to know each of you a little more. And just journey forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
You bet.
Great.